Title: Mother Bear. Stopped in front of the car and begs for help. What this human baby did put everyone in tears. Mother Bear stopped in front of the car and begs for help. What this human baby did put everyone in tears. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Every bit of your support helps us create even more amazing stories for you. The winding forest road stretched ahead like a ribbon, cutting through the dense pine trees. Savannah Reed adjusted her rearview mirror to catch a glimpse of her 6-month-old daughter, Lily, who sat contentedly in her car seat, her wide blue eyes taking in the dappled sunlight filtering through the canopy above. Savannah's husband, Jacob, dozed lightly in the passenger seat after their long day of hiking at the national park. "Almost home, sweetheart," Savannah whispered, smiling as Lily responded with a happy gurgle. The peaceful moment shattered as Savannah rounded a bend and slammed on the brakes. There, standing directly in the middle of the narrow road, was a massive brown bear. The car skidded slightly before coming to a halt just 15 feet from the animal. "Jacob," Savannah gasped, her knuckles white against the steering wheel. Jacob jolted awake, his body tensing as he registered the bear. "Don't move," he whispered, reaching for his phone. "I'll call Forest Service." But something about the bear's behavior made Savannah pause. The creature wasn't charging or showing aggression. Instead, it paced back and forth, making low, mournful sounds that seemed almost human. Every few seconds, the bear would look directly at their car, then turn toward the forest, then back at them. "Jacob, look at her," Savannah said softly. "Something's wrong." In the back seat, Lily had gone completely silent, her usual babbling replaced by an intense focus on the creature outside. The baby leaned forward in her car seat, straining against the straps, her tiny hands reaching toward the windshield. Ma," Lily murmured, the first clear syllable she'd ever spoken. But her eyes weren't on Savannah. They were fixed on the bear. The bear stopped pacing and stared directly at their car. Its eyes, deep brown and glistening with what looked impossibly like tears, seemed to plead with the humans inside. Then it took a few steps toward the forest edge, turned back to look at them, and repeated the motion. "She wants us to follow her," Jacob said, his voice thick with disbelief. "That's crazy," Savannah replied, but even as she spoke, she couldn't shake the feeling that he was right. Wild bears don't ask for help. But Lily began to whimper, her small face scrunching up as she reached more desperately toward the bear. The sound she made wasn't her usual cry of hunger or discomfort. It was something new, something that raised goosebumps on Savannah's arms. "She feels it too," Jacob whispered, watching his daughter. "Something's happening here that we don't understand." The bear made another mournful sound, this one more urgent than before. Then, as if making a decision, it moved to the side of the road and waited, its eyes never leaving their car. Savannah's hand hovered over the gear shift, torn between driving away to safety and following this inexplicable urge to help. In the back, Lily's whimpers grew louder, more insistent. "What do we do?" she asked, looking at her husband. Jacob swallowed hard. I think we need to see what she wants." As the bear watched with those imploring eyes, the young family faced a decision that would forever change their understanding of the natural world and the unexpected connection between a human baby and a desperate mother bear. Jacob took a deep breath and slowly opened his door. "Stay here with Lily," he told Savannah, his voice barely above a whisper. "Are you crazy?" Savannah hissed, grabbing his arm. "That's a wild bear out there." "I know, but—" Jacob glanced at Lily, who was still reaching toward the windshield. her little face intense with concentration. "Something's not right. I'll stay at a safe distance, I promise." Before Savannah could protest further, the bear made another mournful sound, a sound so filled with anguish that it silenced them both. The massive creature pawed at the ground, then took several deliberate steps toward the forest before looking back at them again. "I think you should both come," Jacob said slowly, "but keep Lily in your arms. If anything happens, get back to the car immediately." Savannah's heart pounded in her chest as she unclicked her seatbelt. Every instinct told her to drive away, to protect her baby from this wild animal, but something deeper, something she couldn't explain, made her reach for the door handle. "This is insane," she muttered, but she was already moving to the back seat to unbuckle Lily. The moment Savannah lifted her daughter from the car seat, Lily stopped whimpering. Her small body, which had been tense with distress, suddenly relaxed. The baby's eyes remained fixed on the bear, and a soft cooing sound escaped her lips. "Stay behind me," Jacob instructed as Savannah joined him outside the car. Lily clutched tightly to her chest. The bear watched them emerge, its massive head tilting slightly. For a terrifying moment, Savannah thought it might charge, but instead it turned and began walking slowly toward the tree line, pausing every few steps to ensure they were following. "We should call someone," Savannah whispered as they cautiously began to follow, maintaining what Jacob deemed a safe distance. "The ranger station, animal control, someone who knows what they're doing." Jacob pulled out his phone. "No service," he said, showing her the screen. "We're on our own." The forest grew denser as they moved away from the road. Pine needles cushioned their footsteps, creating an eerie silence broken only by the occasional snap of a twig beneath their feet. The bear led them deeper, following what appeared to be a faint trail through the underbrush. "We shouldn't go much further," Savannah warned, adjusting Lily in her arms. The baby remained unusually calm, her eyes following the bear's every movement. "Look there," Jacob pointed suddenly. Ahead, the trees opened into a small clearing, bathed in golden afternoon light. The bear had stopped at the edge, turning to make sure they were still following before disappearing into the open space. As they approached the clearing with caution, a sound reached their ears. A high-pitched whining that made Lily squirm and reach forward again. "Oh my God!" Savannah gasped as they reached the edge of the clearing. In the center of the sunlit space lay two bear cubs. One cub paced nervously around the other, which was lying unnaturally still on the ground. As they watched, the mother bear approached the injured cub and gently nudged it with her nose, making that same mournful sound they had heard on the road. "It's hurt," Jacob whispered, his voice thick with emotion. The mother bear looked up at them, her eyes seeming to beg for something they couldn't give. The standing cub retreated behind its mother, peering at the humans with frightened eyes. But what happened next left them both speechless. The injured cub lifted its head slightly, and upon seeing the humans it let out a pained cry. In Savannah's arms, Lily responded with a sound of her own, not a cry or a whimper, but a soft, comforting coo, almost like she was trying to soothe the injured animal. "What is happening?" Savannah whispered, tears welling in her eyes at the inexplicable connection unfolding before them. Jacob took a step forward, then froze as he spotted what had caused the cub's distress. A cruel metal trap had clamped around the young bear's hind leg, its teeth digging deep into the flesh. Blood matted the fur around the wound, and the cub's breathing was shallow and rapid. "Someone set a trap," Jacob said, his voice hardening with anger. "That's illegal in this part of the forest." The mother bear moved aside slightly, as if understanding their need to see the situation clearly. Her behavior defied everything they had ever been taught about wild bears protecting their young. "We need to help them," Savannah said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "But how? We can't just walk up to them. The mother might attack if we get too close to her cub." As they stood there, uncertain how to proceed, the sky darkened above them. Looking up, they saw heavy clouds rolling in, the promise of a storm hovering on the horizon. "We don't have much time," Jacob said, glancing at the darkening sky. "Once that storm hits, it'll be too dangerous to stay in the forest." The mother bear made another plaintive sound, this one more urgent than before. She nudged her injured cub again, then looked up at the humans with those too intelligent eyes. In Savannah's arms, Lily began to struggle, leaning toward the bears with surprising strength for a 6-month-old. "Mama," she said again, but this time her tiny hand pointed directly at the mother bear. Ma hurt. A chill ran down Savannah's spine. It was as if her daughter somehow understood exactly what was happening, as if she could sense the mother bear's desperation in a way that adults could not. "What do we do?" Savannah asked, looking to Jacob for guidance. The sky rumbled ominously above them, and the first few raindrops began to fall, splattering against the leaves overhead. Before Jacob could answer, the mother bear did something that would haunt their dreams for years to come. She lowered herself to the ground, her massive body flat against the earth in a position of complete submission, and let out a sound that could only be described as a sob. It was a moment of pure vulnerability from one of nature's most powerful predators, a mother's desperate plea for the life of her child. "I can help," Jacob said suddenly, decision crystallizing in his eyes. "I used to volunteer with wildlife rescue in college. I've freed animals from traps before." "Jacob, no," Savannah protested, clutching Lily tighter as the rain began to fall more steadily. "This isn't some raccoon or fox. These are bears. Do you see any other options?" Jacob gestured around the empty forest. "That cub is dying. We can't just walk away." Thunder rumbled overhead, closer now. The injured cub let out another pained whimper, and in response Lily began to cry. Not her usual fussy cries, but deep, heart-wrenching sobs that seemed too profound for such a tiny being. "She feels their pain," Savannah whispered, looking down at her daughter in wonder. "I don't understand how, but she does." Jacob reached into his pocket and pulled out a small multi-tool he always carried on hikes. "I need to get closer," he said, his voice firm, despite the fear she could see in his eyes. "The trap might have a release mechanism I can trigger." Savannah wanted to argue, to pull him back to the safety of their car, but the sight of the suffering cub and the mother bear's desperate plea made the words die in her throat. "Be careful," she finally managed, her voice breaking. "Please be so careful." Jacob nodded and began to edge forward, moving slowly with his hands visible. The mother bear watched him approach, her body tensing but not rising from her submissive position. The healthy cub retreated further behind its injured sibling, small eyes wide with fear. "Easy," Jacob murmured as he inched closer. "I'm trying to help." Easy now. The rain was falling harder, plastering Jacob's hair to his forehead and turning the forest floor slick with mud. Savannah held Lily under her jacket, trying to shield her from the worst of the downpour, but the baby continued to cry, her small body shaking with each sob. 10 feet from the bears, 8 feet, 6. The mother bear made a low, warning growl as Jacob crept nearer to her injured cub. He froze, then slowly crouched down to appear less threatening. "I know, Mama," he said softly. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But I want to help your baby." To Savannah's astonishment, his gentle tone seemed to soothe the massive creature. The bear's growl subsided, and though she remained vigilant, she allowed Jacob to edge closer to her suffering cub. As Jacob reached the injured bear, the sky split open with lightning, illuminating the clearing in a harsh, white flash. The boom of thunder that followed was immediate and deafening. The mother bear, startled but miraculously, didn't attack. Her eyes remained fixed on Jacob's hands as he examined the cruel metal trap. "It's bad," he called back to Savannah over the pounding rain. "The trap's rusted shut. I don't think I can release it with just my multi-tool." "Then come back," Savannah pleaded, shivering as the cold rain soaked through her clothes. "We tried, Jacob. We need to get Lily out of this storm." But Jacob was already shaking his head. "I can't leave them like this," he insisted, the rain streaming down his face. "If we go now, this cub will die." He looked around desperately, then spotted a fallen branch nearby. "I need leverage," he muttered, stretching to grab it without making any sudden movements. The injured cub whimpered as Jacob positioned the branch between the jaws of the trap. "I know, little one," he soothed. "This is going to hurt, but then it will feel better. I promise." With a grunt of effort, Jacob pushed down on the branch, trying to force the rusted trap open. The metal creaked but didn't give. He repositioned and tried again, straining against the unyielding mechanism. "It's not working," he called back to Savannah, frustration evident in his voice. Suddenly, a new sound cut through the storm, the distinctive crack of branches breaking underfoot. Someone else was approaching the clearing. "Hello?" Savannah called out, hope and fear mingling in her chest. "Is someone there?" A figure emerged from the trees. A man in a rain-slicked green uniform, a rifle slung over his shoulder. A forest ranger. "What in God's name are you people doing?" the ranger shouted over the storm, his eyes widening at the scene before him. Jacob crouched beside the injured cub, the mother bear watching with unnatural tolerance, Savannah holding a baby at the edge of the clearing. "The cub is trapped," Jacob explained quickly, not moving from his position. "We're trying to help." The ranger shook his head in disbelief. "Get away from those bears right now," he ordered, his hand moving toward his rifle. "I've been tracking this family for days. That mother has been acting erratically, approaching the road, coming near campgrounds. She's dangerous." "No," Savannah protested. "She's not dangerous. She's asking for help. Can't you see that?" The ranger's expression hardened. "Ma'am, I've been working with wildlife for 15 years. Bears don't ask humans for help. Now please, step back before someone gets hurt." As he spoke, the ranger unslung his rifle, and though he didn't aim it directly at the bears, his intention was clear. Savannah clutched Lily tighter, horror washing over her as she realized what was about to happen. "You can't shoot them," she cried. "The cub is just injured. If we can get the trap off—" "That trap has been there too long." The ranger cut her off, his voice professionally detached. "Look at the infection. Even if we free it, that cub won't survive. And a mother bear that's comfortable approaching humans is a threat to public safety." Jacob stood slowly, positioning himself between the ranger and the bears. "There has to be another way," he insisted, rain dripping from his chin as he faced the armed man. "We can call a wildlife rehabilitator. They might be able to save the cub." "In this storm, with night coming?" The ranger shook his head. "No one's getting up here until morning, and I can't have a desperate mother bear roaming these woods all night. I'm sorry, but this is standard protocol." As the adults argued, something extraordinary happened. Lily, who had been crying in Savannah's arms, suddenly went quiet. Then, with strength that seemed impossible for her tiny body, she pushed against her mother's chest and let out a sound that wasn't quite a word, but somehow conveyed absolute authority. The sound was so unexpected, so commanding, that all three adults stopped and turned to look at the baby. In that moment of distraction, the mother bear moved. Not toward Jacob or the ranger, but to her injured cub. With gentle jaws, she gripped the scruff of her baby's neck and began to drag it away from the trap. "No!" Jacob cried out, realizing what was happening. "She'll tear its leg off." But the mother bear had another plan. As they watched in astonishment, she positioned herself beside the trap and began to dig furiously at the ground beneath it, her powerful claws tearing through the mud and roots, undermining the anchor that held the trap in place. "I've never seen anything like this," the ranger whispered, his rifle forgotten at his side. "That's problem-solving behavior. Bears don't—" His words trailed off as the mother bear continued her desperate digging, the storm raging around them all but forgotten as they witnessed this display of maternal determination. "She's trying to uproot the stake," Jacob realized aloud. "If she can loosen it enough—" He turned to the ranger, a plea in his eyes. "Help us, please. You have the tools, don't you? Wire cutters, something stronger than what I have?" The ranger hesitated, decades of training warring with the extraordinary scene before him. Then, slowly, he nodded. "I have bolt cutters in my pack," he admitted, "but I've never approached a conscious bear, let alone one with an injured cub." "This one's different," Savannah said, stepping forward with Lily. The baby had calmed completely now, her eyes fixed on the struggling mother bear with an intensity that seemed impossible for an infant. "Look at her. She knows we're trying to help." The ranger studied the bears for a long moment, then sighed and shrugged off his backpack. "If this goes wrong," he warned as he pulled out a pair of heavy-duty bolt cutters, "you both need to grab your baby and run. Don't look back, don't stop, just run. Understood?" They nodded, watching as the ranger cautiously approached the scene. The mother bear stopped digging and watched him, her dark eyes wary but not aggressive. She backed away slightly, giving him access to her cub. "Easy, girl," the ranger murmured, the professional detachment in his voice replaced by something softer. "Let me help your little one." With skilled hands, he positioned the bolt cutters around the chain, anchoring the trap to the stake in the ground. With a powerful squeeze, the chain snapped. The cub was still caught in the trap, but no longer tethered to the earth. "That's step one," the ranger said, glancing up at the sky. "But we still need to get the trap off its leg." The storm was intensifying, sheets of rain now pounding through the canopy. Lightning flashed again, closer this time, followed by a crack of thunder that made them all flinch. "We need to hurry," the ranger said grimly. "This storm's getting dangerous." He reached for the trap itself, but the injured cub, panicked by the thunder, snapped at his hands. The mother bear let out a warning growl, her earlier trust clearly strained by her baby's distress. "I can't get close enough," the ranger said, frustration evident in his voice. "The cub's too scared." As they stood there, the situation deteriorating with each passing minute, Lily began to squirm in Savannah's arms. The baby made an insistent sound and reached toward the bears again, her small face determined. "What is it, sweetie?" Savannah asked, trying to soothe her daughter. "I think—" Jacob said slowly, his eyes widening with a realization that seemed impossible. "I think she wants to help." "That's ridiculous," the ranger scoffed. "She's a baby." But Savannah wasn't so sure. Throughout this entire ordeal, Lily had shown an awareness that defied explanation. The way she had responded to the mother bear's distress, the way she seemed to understand what was happening. "I trust her," Savannah said suddenly, the words surprising even herself. Before either man could stop her, she took 2 careful steps toward the bears, Lily held securely in her arms. The mother bear watched them approach, her eyes flicking between Savannah's face and the baby in her arms. "Savannah, stop!" Jacob hissed, terror evident in his voice. "What are you doing?" "I don't know," she admitted, not taking her eyes off the mother bear, "but I think Lily does." The injured cub had stopped struggling, its pain-filled eyes now fixed on the approaching human and her baby. The mother bear made a soft sound, not a growl, but something gentler, almost like a question. And then, in a moment that would be forever burned into their memories, Lily reached out one tiny hand toward the injured cub and spoke a single, clear word. "Safe." The word hung in the air, impossibly articulate from the mouth of a 6-month-old. Savannah felt her arms break out in goosebumps that had nothing to do with the cold rain. The mother bear seemed to relax slightly, her massive head tilting as she regarded the human child. Then, with deliberate movements, she nudged her injured cub toward them. "Now," Savannah whispered to the ranger, who stood frozen in disbelief. "Cut the trap, now!" Moving as if in a dream, the ranger approached the cub again. This time, the small bear didn't snap or struggle. It lay still, its eyes fixed on Lily, who continued to reach toward it with unwavering focus. With 2 powerful squeezes of the bolt cutters, the ranger severed the main spring of the trap. The cruel jaws released, revealing a deep, angry wound in the cub's leg. "It needs medical attention," the ranger said, his professional demeanor returning now that the immediate crisis was past. "That wound is infected. Without antibiotics—" "Can you help?" Jacob asked, joining them now that the trap was removed. "You said there are rehabilitators." The ranger nodded slowly, his earlier certainty shaken by what he had witnessed. Yes. I can call for evacuation once the storm passes. We have a wildlife center about 40 miles from here." The mother bear approached her cub, sniffing at the wound and gently licking the blood away. The small bear whimpered but managed to sit up, testing its injured leg with cautious movements. "Will they both be taken?" Savannah asked, still holding Lily close. The baby had calmed now, her mission seemingly accomplished, and was watching the bears with heavy-lidded eyes. A standard procedure would be to take only the injured cub, the ranger admitted. "But separating them after this, I don't know. This isn't a standard situation." As if understanding their conversation, the mother bear looked up at them. Her gaze moved from one human face to another before settling on Lily. For a long moment, bear and human baby regarded each other with a connection that transcended species. Then the mother bear did something none of them expected. She approached Savannah, moving slowly and deliberately, until she was close enough that Savannah could feel the heat from her massive body. Savannah stood perfectly still, her heart thundering in her chest, but somehow knowing she wasn't in danger. The mother bear rose slightly on her hind legs, not in aggression, but to bring her face level with Lily's. For one breathtaking moment, predator and human child looked into each other's eyes. Then, with infinite gentleness, the bear touched her nose to Lily's outstretched hand. A tear slipped down Savannah's cheek as she witnessed this impossible moment of connection, this bridge between worlds that her daughter had somehow created. The mother bear lowered herself back to all fours and returned to her cubs, gathering the injured one close with a tenderness that was achingly familiar to Savannah's maternal heart. "We should go," the ranger said softly, breaking the spell of the moment. "The storm's getting worse, and I need to call this in." As they prepared to leave the clearing, the mother bear watched them, her eyes holding an intelligence and gratitude that challenged everything they thought they knew about the boundary between human and animal consciousness. Jacob put his arm around Savannah's shoulders, drawing her and Lily close as they followed the ranger back toward the road. "What happened back there?" he whispered, his voice filled with wonder and confusion. "How did she know?" Savannah looked down at Lily, who had finally succumbed to exhaustion and was sleeping peacefully against her chest. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I think some connections go deeper than we can understand. Maybe children can still feel them before they learn not to." The rain continued to fall as they made their way through the darkening forest, but Savannah barely noticed it. Her mind was filled with the image of the mother bear's eyes, the desperation, the trust, and finally, the gratitude that had shone in them. A mother's love, she realized, transcended species. It was a force as ancient and powerful as the forest itself. Behind them, hidden now by the trees in the gathering darkness, the mother bear gathered her cubs close, the injured one still weakened but free from the cruel trap that would have claimed its life. As thunder rumbled overhead, she settled down to wait for the help the humans had promised. A trust unprecedented in the long and often bloody history between their kinds. And somewhere in the space between human and animal understanding, a connection had been forged that would never be broken. A bridge built by the purest form of empathy, coming from the most unexpected source. A baby who had not yet learned that such connections were supposed to be impossible. 2 weeks later, Savannah sat on the front porch of their cabin, watching as Lily played with her colorful blocks on a blanket spread out on the wooden deck. The baby seemed changed somehow since their encounter in the forest, more focused, more aware of her surroundings. Savannah couldn't explain it, but she felt as though her daughter had aged years in a single afternoon. "Any word from Ranger Collins?" Jacob asked as he emerged from the cabin, carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee. He handed one to Savannah and settled into the chair beside her. Savannah checked her phone for the 100th time that day. Nothing yet. He said he'd call when there was news. After the storm had passed that day, Ranger Mike Collins had called in a wildlife rescue team. They had successfully tranquilized both the mother bear and her injured cub, transporting them to the Northridge Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. The healthy cub had been taken as well, the ranger making an exception to the usual protocol. "This family has been through enough," he had told them as they watched the bears being loaded carefully into specialized transport cages. The injured cub's condition had been critical. Infection had set in deeply, and the veterinarians had been uncertain whether they could save the leg. For the past 2 weeks, Savannah and Jacob had received periodic updates from Ranger Collins, who seemed almost as invested in the bear's recovery as they were. "I still can't make sense of what happened out there," Jacob said quietly, his eyes on Lily. "The way that mother bear acted, the way Lily responded to her," he shook his head. "It defies explanation." Savannah sipped her coffee, remembering the intense moment when the bear had touched her nose to Lily's hand. "I've been reading about it," she admitted, "about animal consciousness, about the way young children perceive the world. There are theories that babies, before they fully develop language, experience reality differently than we do. They're not limited by the labels and categories we've constructed." Jacob raised an eyebrow. "You think Lily could actually understand what the bear wanted?" "I don't know," Savannah said honestly. "But something happened between them, something real." As if hearing her name, Lily looked up from her blocks and fixed her bright blue eyes on her parents. Then, to their astonishment, she clearly said, "Bear, okay." The mug nearly slipped from Savannah's fingers. "Did she just—" Before Jacob could respond, Savannah's phone rang. The screen displayed Ranger Collins' number. "Mike?" she answered anxiously. "Is everything all right?" The ranger's voice came through, tinged with excitement. "Mrs. Reed, I thought you'd want to know. The cub made it through surgery. They managed to save the leg. It's going to have a limp, but with physical therapy, the vets think it can make a full recovery. Relief washed over Savannah. And the mother? The other cub? Both doing well. The mother has been remarkably cooperative with the staff. Another anomaly the team can't quite explain. Bears usually remain aggressive in captivity, especially mother bears separated from their cubs, but she's been allowing the veterinarians to check on her without sedation. When will they be released back into the wild? Jacob asked, leaning closer to hear the conversation. That's actually why I'm calling, Ranger Collins said, his voice taking on a cautious tone. The rehabilitation center director wants to meet with you both. There's been an unusual development. Savannah and Jacob exchanged worried glances. What kind of development? It's better if Dr. Patel explains in person. Can you come to the center tomorrow morning, around 10? After agreeing to the meeting, Savannah hung up and relayed the conversation to Jacob. What do you think is going on? She asked, worry creeping back into her voice. Jacob shook his head. I don't know, but at least the cub is going to be okay. Bear okay, Lily repeated from her blanket, stacking a red block on top of a blue one. Sea bear. Savannah and Jacob stared at their daughter. At 6 months old, Lily should barely be forming single syllables, let alone coherent two-word phrases. And yet, there she was, speaking with intention and clarity that seemed impossible for her age. I think, Jacob said slowly, that our daughter wants to visit the bears. Savannah nodded, a mixture of wonder and unease settling in her chest. I think you're right. The next morning dawned clear and bright, a stark contrast to the stormy day of their forest encounter. As they drove to the wildlife center, Lily sat contentedly in her car seat, occasionally looking out the window and murmuring soft sounds to herself. The North Ridge Wildlife Rehabilitation Center was housed in a sprawling complex of buildings and outdoor enclosures at the edge of the national forest. As they pulled into the visitor parking lot, Savannah noticed a cluster of official-looking vehicles, including one emblazoned with the logo of a National Wildlife Research Institute. Looks like we're not the only ones interested in our bear family, Jacob observed as he parked beside a sleek black SUV. Ranger Collins was waiting for them at the entrance, his normally stoic face breaking into a smile as he spotted Lily in Savannah's arms. The stars of the hour, he greeted them, holding the door open. Dr. Patel is eager to meet you all. He led them through a series of corridors to a conference room where a small group of people sat around a large table. Maps and wildlife movement charts lined the walls, and a projector displayed an image of what appeared to be brain scans. Mr. and Mrs. Reed, a woman with silver-streaked black hair, rose to greet them. I'm Dr. Neha Patel, director of the center, and this must be Lily. Her keen eyes studied the baby with unmistakable interest. Introductions were made around the table. A neurologist specializing in animal cognition, 2 wildlife biologists, and a representative from the research institute whose logo they had seen outside. Please, sit down, Dr. Patel invited, gesturing to empty chairs. What we're about to discuss is unprecedented, to say the least. As they settled, Lily began to squirm in Savannah's lap, her small body tense with excitement. The baby's eyes darted around the room, as if searching for something. Where are the bears? Jacob asked, noticing his daughter's restlessness. In a secured recovery area, Dr. Patel replied. But that's part of what we need to discuss. She took a deep breath and folded her hands on the table. Since the bears arrived 2 weeks ago, we've observed behaviors that challenge everything we know about ursine cognition and interspecies communication. The neurologist, Dr. Abrams, leaned forward. The mother bear, we've been calling her Ursa, has demonstrated problem-solving abilities far beyond what we've documented in brown bears. She's been using tools to retrieve food, creating makeshift comfort items for her cubs, and most remarkably, attempting to communicate with staff through a series of consistent vocalizations and gestures. The injured cub, whom we've named Theo, has been recovering much faster than expected, one of the biologists added. Almost as if he understands the rehabilitation process and is actively participating in it. Savannah held Lily closer, a protective instinct flaring. What does this have to do with us? With our daughter? Dr. Patel's expression softened. 3 days ago, something extraordinary happened. We were conducting routine cognitive tests with Ursa when she became agitated. Not aggressive, but clearly distressed. She began making a vocalization we hadn't heard before and pawing at the observation window. The second biologist, a young woman with bright eyes, continued. I had my phone with me, and it had some photos from the rescue, including one of your family. When Ursa saw the image with Lily in it, she immediately calmed down and made a series of gentle, huffing sounds while touching the screen with her nose. A heavy silence fell over the room as Savannah and Jacob absorbed this information. You're saying, Jacob began, his voice strained with disbelief, that the bear recognized our daughter from a photograph and was asking for her. That's our working theory, yes, Doctor. Patel confirmed. We've repeated the experiment several times with different images. Ursa consistently responds to images of Lily with behaviors associated with recognition and positive emotion. This is why we wanted to meet with you, Ranger Collins added gently. The research team believes there might be a unique cognitive connection between Lily and this bear family. Heart rate elevated but not in a stress pattern, one reported. Cortisol levels stable. This is excitement, not distress. The mother bear approached the observation wall, though from her side it appeared to be just another part of the enclosure. She pressed her nose against it, directly in line with where Lily sat in Savannah's lap. Remarkable, Dr. Abrams breathed. She can't see you, but she knows exactly where Lily is. Bear find, Lily said clearly, reaching toward the glass. Lily here. The mother bear made a soft huffing sound, pawing gently at the barrier that separated them. Behind her, the cubs had noticed their mother's behavior and approached cautiously, the injured one moving more slowly but with evident curiosity. I think we should try visual contact, Dr. Patel said after several minutes of observation. All readings indicate positive association. No signs of aggression or stress. Jacob hesitated, his protective instinct still strong. Are you absolutely sure it's safe? As sure as we can be, Dr. Patel replied honestly. We can reverse the one-way mirror gradually, allowing the bears to see you little by little. At the first sign of a negative reaction, we'll restore the barrier immediately. After a moment's consideration, Jacob nodded his consent. The technicians began the process of transforming the one-way mirror, gradually increasing its transparency to allow the bears to see into the observation room. As the barrier between worlds became clear, the mother bear went completely still. Her deep brown eyes fixed directly on Lily, recognition unmistakable in her gaze. For several breathless seconds, bear and baby regarded each other in perfect silence. Then, in a gesture that brought tears to Savannah's eyes, the mother bear gently placed her paw against the glass, directly in front of Lily's small hand. "Oh my God," one of the researchers whispered, abandoning scientific detachment in the face of such a profound moment. Lily cooed softly and pressed her palm against the glass, mirroring the bear's gesture. A perfect match, despite the vast difference in size, the tiny human hand aligned with the massive paw of the predator. The injured cub approached next, limping to the glass and rising up on its hind legs to get a better look at the humans. Its curious eyes moved from one face to another before settling on Lily with evident recognition. "They remember her," Jacob said softly, wonder replacing his earlier caution. "They know exactly who she is." For nearly an hour, they watched this extraordinary interaction unfold. The bears remained calm and attentive, particularly focused on Lily, who babbled and gestured at them with obvious delight. The mother bear responded to the baby's sounds with gentle vocalizations of her own, creating what seemed like a primitive form of conversation. "We're recording everything," Dr. Patel assured them. "This is unprecedented data." As the session continued, the researchers noticed another remarkable development. The mother bear moved away from the glass and approached the feeding station that had been largely ignored for days. She tore into the fresh salmon with newfound appetite, occasionally glancing back as if to ensure Lily was still there. "She's eating again," the biologist noted with relief. "Whatever connection exists between them, it's having a positive effect on Ursa's well-being." By the time they prepared to leave, the scientific team was buzzing with excitement, already discussing research papers and further studies. But Savannah found herself focused not on the scientific implications, but on the profound emotional exchange she had witnessed between her daughter and these wild creatures. As they gathered their belongings, Dr. Patel approached them with an unexpected question. "We'd like to propose a more extended study," she said carefully, "with regular visits over the next few months as the bears complete their rehabilitation. Your participation would be entirely voluntary, of course, but the potential benefits, both for the bears and for our understanding of interspecies communication, could be extraordinary." Savannah looked at Jacob, then down at Lily, who was watching the bears with obvious reluctance to leave. "We'll need to think about it," Jacob said, his voice thoughtful. "This is all happening very quickly." Dr. Patel nodded her understanding. "Of course, take all the time you need." As they prepared to exit the observation room, Lily squirmed in Savannah's arms, reaching back toward the glass. "Bear friend," she said clearly. "Come back." The mother bear, as if understanding the baby's distress at their departure, moved closer to the glass again. She made a soft, rumbling sound, gentle, reassuring. "I think," Savannah said slowly, watching this exchange, "that we're going to be seeing a lot more of these bears." Outside in the parking lot, as they secured Lily in her car seat, Ranger Collins approached them. His usual professional demeanor had been replaced by genuine wonder. "I've been working with wildlife for 15 years, he said, shaking his head. "I've never seen anything like what happened in there. That connection between your daughter and those bears, it's like something out of a fairy tale." Savannah smiled, watching as Lily gazed out the window toward the rehabilitation center, her small face serene. "Maybe that's what we've forgotten," she suggested, "that the world is full of magic we've been taught not to see." As they drove away, Savannah couldn't shake the image of the mother bear's eyes, so wild and yet so unmistakably aware, filled with an intelligence that defied human categories of understanding. And in her daughter's eyes, she had seen something equally profound, a wisdom that seemed ancient, as though Lily were temporarily channeling something that existed beyond the boundaries of her infant consciousness. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Savannah and Jacob sat on their porch, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. "What do we do now?" Jacob asked softly, his voice filled with the weight of the day's revelations. Savannah was quiet for a long moment, her thoughts spinning with possibilities and concerns. Finally, she turned to him with certainty in her eyes. I think we need to follow this path wherever it leads, she said. Not just for the bears or for science, but for Lily. She has a gift, Jacob, a way of connecting that most of us have lost. I don't want her to lose it too. Jacob nodded slowly, reaching for her hand. You know this will change our lives. Once word gets out about what happened today, I know, Savannah acknowledged. But I think our lives already changed the moment that Bear stood in the road and asked for our help. As if on cue, a sound drifted from the baby monitor. Not Lily's usual sleep noises, but a soft melodic humming that echoed the mother bear's gentle rumble. Savannah and Jacob listened in wonder, feeling as though they were hearing the first notes of a conversation that transcended species, age, and even language itself. A primal connection to the natural world that most humans had forgotten how to hear. Inside her crib, Lily slept peacefully, her dreams filled with forests and gentle bears, and a world where the boundaries between human and animal were not walls but bridges, waiting to be crossed by those still innocent enough to see them. 6 months passed, each week marked by visits to the rehabilitation center. What had begun as a scientific curiosity had evolved into something far more profound. A groundbreaking study in interspecies communication that was attracting attention from researchers around the world. Lily, now 1 year old, had developed at an astonishing rate. Her vocabulary exceeded that of most 3-year-olds, though she spoke most freely in the presence of the bears. Her pediatrician had used the term extraordinary cognitive acceleration, but Savannah suspected there was something happening beyond what medical science could measure. On a crisp autumn morning, Savannah bundled Lily into her coat for their scheduled visit to the bears. Jacob had left for work early, his engineering firm having granted him flexible hours to accommodate their increasingly unusual family schedule. "Bear day!" Lily exclaimed happily from her car seat as they drove through the golden-leaved forest. "Ursa and Theo and Luna!" She had given the second cub a name herself, insisting that Luna was what the little female bear wanted to be called. Savannah smiled at her daughter in the rearview mirror. "That's right, sweetie. Dr. Neha says Theo's leg is much stronger now." The Wildlife Center had changed in the months since their first visit. A new wing had been constructed specifically for the bear cognition study, funded by a major research grant. The small team of scientists had grown to include specialists in multiple disciplines: linguistics, animal behavior, cognitive development, even philosophers exploring the nature of consciousness. As they pulled into the parking lot, Savannah noticed an unfamiliar collection of vehicles, including a van with a satellite dish and the logo of a national news network. "Looks like we have visitors today," she murmured, a flicker of unease passing through her. Despite the growing scientific interest in Lily's connection with the bears, she and Jacob had been protective of their daughter's privacy, limiting media exposure and declining most interview requests. Dr. Patel met them at the entrance, her usual calm demeanor replaced by evident excitement. "Savannah, thank you for coming. We've had an extraordinary development overnight." "What kind of development?" Savannah asked, shifting Lily to her other hip. The little girl was looking around curiously, already searching for her bear friends. Dr. Patel lowered her voice. "Ursa has begun arranging objects in her enclosure in what appears to be deliberate patterns. We've recorded her placing stones and branches in consistent formations. Formations that change when Lily is present versus when she's absent." Savannah's breath caught. "You think she's trying to communicate through symbols?" "We're not jumping to conclusions, Doctor," Patel cautioned. "But yes, that's one hypothesis. The research team has been here all night documenting it." As they walked toward the observation area, Dr. Patel explained that they had installed various items in the bear's enclosure, different colored balls, wooden blocks, and flat stones, to test whether the pattern making was random or intentional. The media caught wind of it, she added apologetically, nodding toward a small group of people being held in the center's conference room. We've kept them away from the main research area, but they're pushing for access. I've insisted that nothing happens without your approval. Savannah nodded gratefully. Despite the growing public interest, the privacy and well-being of both Lily and the bears remained paramount to everyone involved in the study. When they entered the observation room, several researchers looked up from their monitors, their faces lighting up at the sight of Lily. The little girl had become the heart of their unprecedented project, her natural ability to connect with the bears, transforming what might have been dry scientific research into something that felt almost sacred. "Good morning, Lily," Dr. Abrams greeted her warmly. The neurologist had become one of Lily's favorites, often bringing her small gifts and taking time to explain his equipment in simple terms she could understand. "Hi, Doctor." Lily chirped. Then her attention immediately shifted to the large viewing window. "Bears, please." Through the glass, they could see the transformed enclosure. What had started as a simple naturalistic habitat had evolved into a sophisticated environment designed to both challenge and comfort its inhabitants. Theo's leg had healed remarkably well, though he still favored it slightly when running. Luna had grown into a playful young cub, often the first to approach the glass when Lily arrived. But it was Ursa, the mother bear, who had undergone the most remarkable transformation. The depressed, listless animal of 6 months ago had been replaced by an alert, engaged presence whose intelligence seemed to grow more evident with each passing week. Today, Ursa was sitting in the center of the enclosure, surrounded by what could only be described as a deliberate arrangement of objects. Colored balls had been placed in a semicircle, with smooth river stones set in a line leading toward the observation window. Behind her, branches had been propped against each other to form a simple structure. "She's been working on this arrangement since dawn," one of the researchers explained, showing Savannah time-lapse footage on a monitor. "Watch how methodical she is, testing positions, adjusting items if they're not quite right. This is far beyond any tool use we've documented in bears before." Lily pressed her small hands against the glass, her eyes wide with excitement. "Ursa making words," she announced with complete conviction. The researchers exchanged glances. They had learned months ago not to dismiss Lily's insights, no matter how improbable they seemed. "What do you mean, sweetie?" Savannah asked gently. "What kind of words?" Lily pointed to the arrangement of objects. "That says Lily come. And that," she pointed to the branch structure, "says home soon." A hushed silence fell over the observation room. Dr. Patel stepped closer to the glass, studying the arrangements with new intensity. "Lily, can you tell which objects mean which words?" With the confident certainty of a child who doesn't yet understand that what she's doing should be impossible, Lily pointed to each element, assigning meanings to the patterns. "Blue ball is Lily. Red ball is come. Stones in line mean walking. Branches like that mean home or forest. Little stones in circle mean soon." Dr. Abrams was rapidly taking notes, his hands trembling slightly. If she's right, if the bear is actually creating a symbolic language, this goes beyond anything we've documented in non-human species. Even the most advanced primate language studies haven't demonstrated spontaneous creation of abstract symbols. "Ursa smart," Lily stated simply, as if this were the most obvious thing in the world. Then she pressed her face closer to the glass and called out, "I see your words." The effect was immediate. Ursa rose to her feet and approached the glass, her movements deliberate and graceful despite her enormous size. The bear's eyes, deep pools of awareness, fixed on Lily with what could only be described as joy. She made a series of soft, huffing sounds, then turned and added another ball to her arrangement, a green one placed beside the blue. Green is happy, Lily translated promptly. Ursa, happy Lily understands. Dr. Patel sat down heavily in a nearby chair. I need to call the linguistics team, she said faintly, and possibly rewrite every textbook on animal cognition. While the researchers absorbed the implications of what they were witnessing, Savannah watched her daughter interact with the bears with a mixture of pride and something close to awe. In moments like this, Lily seemed both entirely her child and something other, a bridge between worlds, possessing an awareness that transcended conventional understanding. Ursa continued to adjust her symbolic arrangements, occasionally looking to Lily for confirmation. The cubs, more playful but clearly learning from their mother, added their own objects to the patterns. Theo pushed a yellow ball toward the glass, which Lily promptly identified as meaning play. For nearly an hour, this extraordinary exchange continued, researchers documenting every moment while Lily translated with unwavering confidence. Ursa seemed to understand that the humans needed time to grasp what came naturally to her and Lily, a symbolic language created between species that had never before found common ground. As their session came to an end, Ursa gathered her cubs close to the glass for what had become their customary farewell. The three bears and Lily pressed their paws and hands to the same spots on opposite sides of the barrier, a ritual that never failed to move everyone who witnessed it. Back tomorrow, Lily promised, a hint of sadness in her voice. Ursa made a low, gentle sound and added one final object to her arrangement, a smooth white stone placed apart from the others. Promise stone, Lily translated, means we keep our word. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Patel drew Savannah aside. There's something else we need to discuss, she said, her voice low enough that Lily couldn't hear. The rehabilitation plan. Originally, we intended to release the bears back into the wild once Theo was fully recovered. Savannah felt her heart constrict. She had known this conversation was coming but had been avoiding thinking about it. And now? Now, we face an ethical dilemma, Dr. Patel admitted. These bears, particularly Ursa, have developed cognitive abilities and communication skills that would make traditional release problematic. They've grown accustomed to human interaction in ways that could endanger them in the wild, but keeping them in captivity permanently. She trailed off, the conflict evident in her expression. Before Savannah could respond, a commotion erupted from the main corridor. Raised voices, then the sound of approaching footsteps. Dr. Patel tensed. I specifically said no visitors in the research wing today. The door burst open, and a man in an expensive suit strode in, trailed by an apologetic-looking center administrator and two individuals carrying camera equipment. Dr. Patel, Gregory Winters, Department of Advanced Research Projects. The man extended his hand with practiced charm. I apologize for the interruption, but when we heard about the breakthrough... His gaze shifted to Lily, then to the bears beyond the glass, his expression calculating in a way that sent warning signals through Savannah's mind. Mr. Winters, this area is restricted, Dr. Patel said firmly. We have strict protocols about visitors during sessions. The man waved away her concern. I understand, but this project has evolved beyond a simple rehabilitation study. My department has a vested interest in cognitive enhancement research, and what you've discovered here. He gestured toward Lily and the bears. could have applications far beyond wildlife conservation. Savannah instinctively moved to stand between the man and her daughter. "What kind of applications?" she asked, unable to keep the suspicion from her voice. Gregory Winters smiled, but the expression didn't reach his eyes. "Communication frameworks, cognitive acceleration techniques, interspecies intelligence mapping. The potential is virtually limitless. The military and medical applications alone would justify significant funding increases." Lily, sensing the tension, had moved closer to her mother, her small hand clutching Savannah's leg. Behind the glass, Ursa had also noticed the newcomers. The mother bear's posture changed subtly, becoming more alert, protective. "My daughter is not a research subject, Mr. Winters," Savannah said coldly. "And neither are these bears. They're living beings with their own autonomy and dignity." Of course, Winters backpedaled smoothly. "I'm simply suggesting a more formal partnership. Your daughter's gifts could help shape the future of human-animal relations, perhaps even human cognitive development itself. We're prepared to offer substantial resources to expand this project." Dr. Patel stepped forward. "Mr. Winters, we appreciate your interest, but any changes to our research protocols would need to go through proper ethical review. And Mrs. Reed is right. Lily's participation has always been and will always be voluntary, guided by her parents' informed consent." The man's pleasant facade slipped slightly. "Dr. Patel, I don't think you understand the significance of what's happening here. This goes beyond academic research. There are national interests at stake." "National interests?" Savannah repeated incredulously. "She's a baby who can talk to bears. How is that a matter of national security?" But even as she spoke, Savannah could see the calculation in Winter's eyes, the assessment of potential and control. It sent a chill through her that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. Behind the glass, Ursa had begun rearranging her objects with urgent movements. Lily turned to watch, her expression growing serious. "Danger," she said suddenly, pointing to the new pattern Ursa was creating. "Ursa says man is danger." Winter's eyebrows shot up, then narrowed. "Fascinating. The bear appears to be making value judgments about humans it hasn't interacted with." He motioned to one of his companions. "We should document this." As the man raised his camera, Dr. Patel stepped between him and the observation window. "Absolutely not. I must insist that you leave now, Mr. Winters. Our protocols are clear about unauthorized recording devices." For a tense moment, it seemed the man might argue further. Then, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, he nodded and pocketed a business card on the nearest desk. "We'll continue this conversation soon, Dr. Patel. The implications of your research are too significant to remain confined to this facility." As they left, Savannah felt a gnawing worry take root in her chest. The genuine wonder and discovery of the past months had attracted attention she hadn't anticipated. Attention from people who saw Lily and the bears not as beings worthy of respect, but as resources to be utilized. "I don't like him," Lily said simply once the door had closed behind Winters and his associates. She turned back to the glass where Ursa was watching intently. "Ursa doesn't either." Dr. Patel's normally composed expression was troubled. "I'm sorry about that interruption, Savannah. Mr. Winters' department has been pressuring the center's board for access to our research for weeks. I've been trying to keep them at arm's length, but evidently they found another way in." Savannah nodded, suddenly exhausted. "What happens now? With the bears, with this research, with everything?" Dr. Patel sighed deeply. "I honestly don't know. We're in uncharted territory, scientifically, ethically, even legally. These bears have demonstrated cognitive abilities that could potentially classify them differently under research ethics guidelines, maybe even under legal protection statutes. "And Lily?" Savannah asked quietly, watching as her daughter continued to communicate with Ursa through the glass, their silent exchange transcending the barrier between them. "That's entirely up to you and Jacob," Dr. Patel said firmly. "Her participation has always been voluntary, and that won't change regardless of external pressure. But," she hesitated, choosing her words carefully, "you should be prepared for increased attention. What's happening here is unprecedented, and there are many different interests that will want to be involved." Savannah felt the weight of responsibility settling heavily on her shoulders. When they had first followed the mother bear into the forest 6 months ago, they could never have imagined where that path would lead, to discoveries that challenged the very definitions of consciousness and communication, and now, potentially, to conflicts over who had the right to control and direct those discoveries. As they prepared to leave, Lily placed her hand against the glass one final time. Ursa mirrored the gesture, her massive paw aligned with the tiny human hand. "Be safe," Lily said clearly. "Lily, protect Ursa. Ursa, protect Lily." The bear made a soft huffing sound that Savannah had come to recognize as affirmation. Then, with deliberate movements, Ursa returned to her symbolic arrangement and added one final object, a curved branch placed in a protective circle around all the others. "Family, stay together," Lily translated, her voice carrying a certainty that belied her young age. "No matter what." Driving home through the forest that was now painted in autumn colors, Savannah's mind raced with concerns and possibilities. The world, as she had understood it, had been fundamentally altered since that rainy day when a mother bear had stopped their car and asked for help. The boundaries she had once taken for granted, between human and animal, between communication and silence, between the possible and impossible, had dissolved, replaced by questions that had no easy answers. In the back seat, Lily watched the passing trees with unusual solemnity for a 1-year-old. "Bears come home?" she asked suddenly. Savannah met her daughter's eyes in the rearview mirror. "What do you mean, sweetie?" "Bears not for cage," Lily said with simple certainty. "Bears for forest. Our forest." The implications of her daughter's words sent a shiver down Savannah's spine. Was Lily suggesting what it sounded like, that the bears should come to live near their home? The idea was at once terrifying and strangely compelling. "We'll talk about it with Daddy," Savannah promised, knowing that the conversation ahead with Jacob would be challenging. They had adapted to the strangeness of their lives over the past months, embracing the wonder of Lily's connection with the bears. But what was beginning to unfold now moved beyond wonder into unknown territory, with consequences they couldn't fully predict. When they arrived home, Savannah was surprised to find Jacob's car already in the driveway. He usually worked until evening on the days they visited the center. She found him in the living room, his laptop open on the coffee table, his expression grave. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately, setting Lily down to play with her toys. Jacob turned the laptop toward her. On the screen was a news article with the headline, "Miracle Child Communicates with Bears. Scientific Breakthrough or Elaborate Hoax." Below the headline was a grainy photo of Lily pressing her hand to the glass, Ursa mirroring the gesture on the other side. "Someone leaked information to the press," Jacob said, his voice tight with anger. "There are reporters at the end of our road. I had to convince them to stay off our property." Savannah sank onto the couch beside him, the day's events suddenly overwhelming. "It was bound to happen eventually," she said softly. "A government representative showed up at the center today, someone from a department I've never heard of. He was talking about military applications, Jacob." military applications for our baby's ability to talk to bears. Jacob ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she knew well. This is getting out of control, Savannah. We agreed to help with the research because it seemed important, for the bears, for science. But I never signed up for government involvement or media attention. From across the room, Lily looked up from her toys. Though she appeared to be playing, the intensity in her eyes made it clear she was following every word of the adult conversation with unnerving comprehension. Ursa says come, she stated simply. Night forest, moon path. Jacob and Savannah exchanged alarmed glances. What does that mean, Lily? Jacob asked carefully. Lily tilted her head, as if listening to something they couldn't hear. Ursa coming. Find Lily. Find home. A chill ran through Savannah. Are you saying Ursa is planning to escape the center? Lily nodded solemnly. Not safe there now. Bad man wants to take Ursa, take Lily. Her small face scrunched with concentration. Ursa knows forest paths. Ursa finds Lily's den. Jacob stood up abruptly. This is impossible. The bears are in a secure facility. They can't just walk out and find our house. But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his voice. Over the past months, they had witnessed too many impossible things to dismiss Lily's words outright. If she's right, Savannah said slowly, if Ursa somehow found a way to escape and is heading here, what do we do? The question hung in the air between them, weighted with implications that neither had been prepared to face. Their lives, already transformed by the extraordinary bond between their daughter and the Bear family, stood on the precipice of a change even more profound. Bears are family too, Lily said simply, returning to her toys as if the matter were settled. Families stay together. Outside, the sun began to set, painting the forest in deepening shadows. Somewhere beyond those trees, perhaps already moving along hidden paths, a mother bear and her cubs might be making their way toward a destination that defied human expectation, but aligned perfectly with a promise made between species. Family stay together, no matter what. And as night fell over the forest, Savannah and Jacob faced the reality that their definition of family and of humanity itself might never be the same again.